show. I am your host, Colby Peterson, and we're going to be talking a little bit of men's basketball with you today. So on the panel today, we have with us Sean Lewis.
Great. Love getting the split in Missoula this weekend.
And Dustin Chapman.
I'm not going to dance on the intro. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
And we got some cool new theme music, Chappie. Come on.
I like it. It's just not a dancer. I'm sorry.
We do have some cool new theme music to go with this instant reaction show. And like Sean said, split up in Missoula this weekend. Not exactly what I wanted, what better than getting swept in Missoula, because like they noted during the broadcast, the Wildcats in Randy Ray's tenure have only won 4 times now in Dahlberg Arena in Missoula. So good to see that happening. Because
I believe today is 5. He was 4 of 15 coming into tonight.
Okay.
This is his 5th win.
So yeah, wins tough to come by in Missoula, and we got one. So love to talk about it. Guys, let's dive in. We're going to talk a little bit, of course, about the weekend in general, because we didn't have an instant reaction show for you folks on Thursday. We were quite busy with some other things. And so we thought, all right, let's kind of lump things together and talk about the weekend as a whole on Saturday. So guys, impressions this weekend. Sean Lewis, I want to start with you. What did we see and what did we learn about this Wildcat team in a hard-fought split in Missoula?
So I'm going to take this a little bit at a time. We already mentioned Randy Ray's record in Missoula, 4 and 15. That would have been 4 and 14 coming into the weekend. That's always a tough road trip. That arena is tough to play in. Fans, no matter what. Montana's been a little bit down this year. We had Mike Nugent, right? Was from the Arna or the Grizz fan pod.
Yeah, there you go.
I almost screwed it up again. I did that on our show.
That's okay.
The Grizz fans pod, and he was talking about how he expected Montana to lose both of these games, and thought that that not having the crowd would be a factor. That Weber would come in and roll the Montana's down. So look. We did not play our best on Thursday. We got rolled out of that gym. Montana on Thursday shot the lights out from 3. Who knew? They hit like twice as many threes as they had in any game all season on Thursday night. But I thought mental toughness. This is the first time that we've seen a loss on a Thursday where we're the team that had to make some adjustments coming into Saturday. Today's game was ugly. UGLY, ugly. But the Wildcats pulled away in the second half. They stayed mentally tough. They had a couple of cheap technical fouls called on them. It seemed like every time the Wildcats started to pull away, that there was a momentum-breaking call, good or bad. I'm never going to blame the refs for a win or credit them for a win or blame them for a loss.
Why not?
Because I'm classier than that, Colby.
I'm not.
And so I'm gonna say we got the split. That's what you want on the road. Randy Ray said it on our very airwaves. You want to go. You win at home, you split on the road. We got the split. That's all we could ask for this weekend.
Very true. Like you said, a tough game on Saturday specifically. Wildcats committing 15 turnovers. The Montana Grizz committing 10. So a lot of balls, being stolen, knocked out of bounds, whatever, making it very difficult to keep kind of a flow of game going. Chappie, what about you? Your thoughts on this series over the weekend with the split?
You don't take wins in Montana, in Missoula for granted ever in anything. And that's what it comes down to. Montana could be the last place team in the league, and you would still feel like they could beat us 1, if not 2 games in a series like this. So never, ever, ever take wins or any game that you ride out of Missoula with victorious for granted, ever. Okay. But the second part of this, Sean's right. It was an ugly game today, but I don't want to say ugly in the sense that it was bad basketball. I'm so split on these 2-game series because part of me loves it because I love watching the game today and seeing coaching adjustments made and seeing adjustments by the players made and seeing what happens, which ends up being somewhat ugly basketball, but it's a chess match, right? And you end up with a split. But part of me also just hates it because, I just don't. I think you're getting more splits in the series because they're playing 2 games in 3 days. I think a lot of times if you're playing a home and home on, mirroring schedules as the season goes on, I think you're going to get a lot more sweeps than you are seeing in these 2 games in 3 day sets.
Yeah, they have sort of a playoff mentality there, right? Where you've got to turn around, you got to make adjustments, and you're going to see that team again. And I think that it's made this season in particular very, very interesting because we've seen splits from very good teams. EWU is a team, Eastern Washington is a team that is surging right now, and they've had a couple of splits themselves. So just that ability to have to make those adjustments makes all the difference, I think.
Well, and
Can we
and
just
what's-
agree that Montana's not a team we want to see in Boise?
Yeah, I don't
For
want
one
They're
game.
not a-
We don't want to have them on a one game. Our life depends on it.
Nope.
No, and Randy Ray and Travis DeCure have been around the conference long enough. Both of them, like, again, you're watching a chess match between two coaches, and part of that's entertaining. But I just always, I don't know, the thing that makes me mad about it, I guess, is that, and maybe it doesn't matter, but you feel like you want the best team in the conference to have a really good record. To me, I want the best team in the conference to have a better record because I think it helps for seeding, right? If the entire conference is 500 and one team is a game or two better than 500, like that doesn't help. And for me, for the Big Sky to get better overall, we have to win some games in the NCAA tournament. And the way to do that is to get better seeding or win games to get better seeding. So I'm torn on it, but it is fun. It is fun to watch as a fan, I think.
Well, I want to move us along here, fellas, and talk about our normal cycle, which is turnovers and takeaways. So let's go to that. I think I want to start with turnovers first, and then we'll go to takeaways. So, Sean Lewis, I want to get your thoughts. What's your turnover for this one?
I have to look up what I even said in our chat. Our turnover is, I called it the Montana curse.
Oh yeah,
and the Dahlberg curse, and I don't care. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the name on the jerseys. I don't know if it's the purple. I don't know if it's being in Missoula. They mentioned it on the broadcast today. This is very home friendly for each of these two teams. Obviously Montana and Weber are the two top teams historically in the basketball as far as number of championships, Big Sky titles, NCAA tournament appearances, whatever metric you want to use for that. But the fact of the matter is, when we go to Montana, we more often than not lay an egg.
yeah.
And Randy Ray, over the last 15 seasons, Randy Ray has only won 4. Usually you only get one shot up there. So, some of those 4-15 records, some of that is in conference tournament action and postseason. But gosh, it just seems like when we walk in that building, it's our kryptonite. So to be able to get 1 out of 2, gosh, that makes me happy. And again, I never want to lose to an inferior team, and Montana is way down in the Big Sky standings. They're not going to get a first round bye in Boise. They're playing on Wednesday. They're not the best team. They're not the Montana that we've come to know and expect as far as a championship level team. Which one tells you that anybody can get hot on a night and anybody in the Big Sky can beat you. So we need to be ready to play every night in the Big Sky. But 2, gosh, it just feels so good to get a win up there when there's so few and far between, that today is a little bit cleansing. I wouldn't want to be on that road trip home if we had lost today and got swept.
Yeah. Because, I was on this week's episode with you guys when you chatted with Mike Nugent. He was saying, well, the Wildcats, they look real good. They could be the ones that sweep Montana in Missoula. And I'm with you, Sean. It's just like, no, I've seen this movie a lot of times, man. And it's just not the kind of thing that happens. The Wildcats, no matter how good they look, just don't seem to be able to get it done very often in Missoula.
Well, and didn't you mention, maybe it was you, somebody in our group chat, over the weekend was talking about I even forget the point that I was going to make. Just the forget it. Move on.
All right. Chappie, let's move on to you. What's your turnover for this one?
Yeah, my turnover is the struggles for Cody Carlson are continuing, which is surprising to me. This is the second weekend in a row where Cody's had a little bit of a rough time. And he was 3 of 4 today, had 6 points, but his minutes were way down. Thursday, his shots just weren't falling at all. So his game needs to adjust. I think teams started to key off on him. They started to double him when he was getting the ball. The baby hook should be falling, but it's not. So that's my turnover. But to me, there's actually a silver lining to it, and that is we need a nickname. Whatever the nickname is, audience, we want it. Please tell us what you want. The three big men that we have need a good nickname, because even though Cody Carlson is struggling, you saw it today, Michael Kozak was money. he was amazing.
I'd say he was clutch.
Yes, hit a big three. His hustle was there. Hit some big free throws. I mean, he hit a big shot coming down there at the end of the game. He was amazing, and that's what the three big men have been all season. Early on, when Dante Bassett was struggling, it was Carlson and Kozak that were picking up the pieces and were making everything work. When Michael Kozak was struggling a little bit more mid-year, it was Bassett and Carlson that were picking it up. And now as Carlson struggling, it's the other two. So negative that Cody Carlson's struggling. I wish we could have all three of them playing at a high level all the time. But even to turn that into a positive, it's amazing to see that we have three big bodies that are all playing so well, that can play so well. It's a luxury that I don't know that Weber's ever had, and I don't think many teams in the Big Sky have ever had.
Yeah, and I think that it goes to show a little bit of what we talked about on the show a couple of times, where there's just a lot of depth on this team right now. And that when you've got a guy who maybe isn't going, we lovingly called Cody Carlson the walking bucket because he had such a great first half of the season, hitting a little bit of a struggle right now, not getting quite as many minutes. But we have a Dante Bassett or Michael Kozak to come off the bench and fill in for some of those numbers when one guy is not really playing up to their normal level. And so we've got a comment here: the Three Amigos, right? Why not? It's the Three Amigos right now.
I like that. Guys, I can take that. That's a good nickname.
Yeah, the rotation of those guys in the front court has really made Weber State. It's made them very, very dangerous, because you can't just hope that if one guy shuts down, you can forget about it because there's another guy coming up in the place. It's almost like a hydra.
And bigs in the Big Sky Conference have always been such a hit or miss thing, right? It's not. We're not a conference that have traditionally had big, giant, dominant big men, and so for us to have three of them that are very good, all three of them could be the main guy on any team. It's
a good problem to have.
It
certainly is. So I'm kind of with you guys. It is always tough to play. I mean, the Montana curse is definitely a thing. That's a turnover. Continued struggles with Cody Carlson. That's definitely a turnover. I would say that in this one, for me, the Wildcats didn't necessarily need this, but we are known for a team that shoots the three relatively well. The play-by-play announcer in Missoula noted that the Wildcats are normally a team that makes about 8 threes a game. Tonight, we only made 5. But we didn't necessarily need it, which shows how versatile this team can be. But I think that for us to really pull ourselves away in these kinds of fights, we should maybe be able to knock down a few of those or be more comfortable taking those threes, because that's who we are and that's what made us successful. And so maybe that's a thing that has to be looked at in the future.
Colby, let's talk about that for a second, though. We were 5 of 12 tonight, right? That's 41%.
41%.
That's still a great average.
Yeah.
The problem is we're normally shooting 20 threes a game, 25 threes a game. The game plan obviously today was move the ball inside, attack inside. That was the plan. And you see that with Bassett with 13 points, Kozak with 13 points, Jones with 13 points. I mean, you don't get much more balance than your three-headed monster, the Three Amigos, whatever we're calling them today. The Three Amigos getting all exactly the same amount of points on very similar shooting percentages, and getting to the line. Bassett got six attempts from the line, Kozak 4, Jones went to the charity stripe 4 times, went 7 of 8. So I think that was the game plan going in today. So I'm not going to criticize the Wildcats for only hitting 5 3-points when that was clearly not the game plan today.
Yeah, true. The idea was to pound it in inside, and they did a great job of that. So, guys, let's flip the script now, and let's go to takeaways. Sean Lewis, let's go back to you. What's your takeaway from this one?
So I've said this many, many times. I'm quoting Randy Ray. He always says, "Win your games at home, split on the road." Usually, you want to split. You're splitting against 2 schools, but in the way it's right now, we're playing 1 school back to back. We got to split in Montana. We've got to consider this a success. That we did the job. We went 500 on the road this weekend. That's what Randy expects. That's a good weekend Let's wash Thursday night. I know Thursday night sucked. It was an awful game,
Yeah.
but we washed it out of wash that flavor out of our mouths, and we move on. We got the W today, and we'll move on to the next one. We got the split. That's my takeaway. That's the good thing for me today.
All right. Chappie, what about you? What's your takeaway from this one?
Yeah, to me, it's the bench play. And it's an interesting paradox to me because we've talked so much about how this team has a lot of depth, and they do, but it's I would call it maybe balance and not depth, because Randy Ray's only playing 3 guys off the bench pretty much every game, right? He's rarely getting to the 9th or 10th guy in any game. Okay, but our bench play today was phenomenal. We talked about Michael Kozak. Michael Kozak really may have saved the game, honestly. Cody Carlson, KJ Cunningham. KJ Cunningham came in and had 24 minutes. He was phenomenal off the bench. And then, of course, we get Dylan Jones. He's just a workhorse. I love it. So we're getting the bench play today really was out of this world, and it helps us going forward to have that good bench play.
Yeah.
Couldn't you argue that the bench play tonight was the difference between tonight and Thursday? 13 points from the bench on Thursday, 31 points from the bench tonight. That's your difference in the 2 ball games.
I think so, absolutely. And KJ Cunningham, we were kind of talking about this a bit off air, but he had 24 minutes tonight. I mean, how often has anybody taken minutes from Isaiah Brown and Sigu? But KJ Cunningham had 24 minutes. That's excellent. It
is excellent. Guys, I just want to throw in my takeaway really quickly. We've seen, and this is more of a trend that we've seen, Sigo Sissoko Jawara has really, had taken this ascent. He was the player of the week, the Big Sky player of the week this last week. And looking at him being a constant and very productive presence in the backcourt bodes well for the Wildcats in the future, because, thus far we've really seen we always see very consistent and good play out of Isaiah Brown, which we like, but Sigo has really come along, and that's good for the future because Sigo is just a junior. So he will have another season next year to continue to play in the backcourt, and that bodes well for us going forward. So, guys, I want to now move to MVPs. What are we thinking for that? Sean Lewis, I want to start with you. Who's your MVP for this one?
So I want to give the MVP for the entire weekend, and it's Sigu. Okay. Right. Let's give him the credit he deserves. He was the man on Thursday in that loss with 19 points. Today, not quite as stellar of a performance. Ended up with I'm on the season stats. Sorry. Ended up with 14 points, so average of about 16 and a half on the weekend. But just the team leader. I mean, he's really emerging as a go-to player. He had the best weekend out of any of the Wildcats.
Yeah.
Overall, he wasn't the best player on the floor today, but he had the best weekend, and so want to give him the shout out and the credit he deserves. It was Big Sky Player of the Week last week. We had him on our show. Go listen to that, and a good weekend up in Missoula today.
Yeah, and the stat that I think stands out, I mean, 14 points, it's like, that's not that much today, but 7 assists for Sigu today.
Yeah.
That shows that he's doing things out, off ball or, being a facilitator, not necessarily shooting shots. So good to see.
Well, here's the thing for me about Sigu. And I loved our interview with him that we had this week because of this. You could tell that, I mean, having interviewed him now and learning a little bit more about him, we can all see exactly why Randy Ray stuck with the kid. Right, like early in the season when he was struggling, we were all kind of like, "Is this going to work out?" But what it was, I mean, knowing his story from LMU and things like that, the kid just needed somebody to believe in him. He just needed some consistency, needed to get some consistent minutes, and the coaching staff clearly saw that, and it's worked out well, which once again proves that we are not Division I basketball coaches, and Randy Ray is.
That's right.
And just to finish out his stat line for today, 6 boards, 7 assists. I mean, an all around great game for Sigu today. I mean, he wasn't the leading scorer, but he didn't need to be.
Yeah. Chappie, what about you? Who's your MVP for either this game or this weekend?
I'm going to go with my guy, do-it-all, Dylan Jones, man.
All right.
He just fills up the stat sheets seemingly every game. And he comes in, he's got energy. It's been great to see him. I know he had an off series couple weeks back against SUU, but the last 2 series against Montana State and Montana, the kid's been on fire. I mean, he got to the line 8 times today, right? He had 8 rebounds, 2 assists. He had 4 fouls, and quite frankly, he was taken out, near the end of the second half there, last, 5, 7, 8 minutes. Otherwise, I think that stat line would have been even that much better. So, Dylan Jones, man, what do you say about that kid as a freshman? He's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh-oh. Do we lost our host?
There we go.
Here he comes back.
Colby. Colby's back now.
Colby needs to open the office door there.
Inside joke, fellas. But what I was saying was that Dylan is a player who really has done a good job doing things off ball. He got himself into a little bit of foul trouble, but that was mostly because he was playing aggressive defense, kind of like what the Grizz did to the Wildcats today, where they found a lot of their folks in foul trouble, but that's because they were playing very aggressive defense. So I want to just wrap this one up, guys, with my MVP. I'm going to go with Isaiah Brown. And the reason I'm saying that in this game, IB led all scorers with 21 points in this game, 6 of 8 from field goal range, 2 of 2, shot the hottest from 3-point land in a game where, we kind of struggled from 3 or didn't shoot nearly as many threes. A perfect 7 of 7 from the line. Just a great job by IB, and a guy that really gave us a bucket when we needed it. He was a person who was attacking, I noticed, especially in the second half, and keeping the pressure on Montana when we needed a bucket. He was the guy that was like, I'm going to drive to the line, and you're either going to put me on the foul line or I'm going to get that bucket. And he was getting it. So my MVP for this one, Isaiah Brown. So, guys,
one more thing from me, real quick, because we always talk about this, but Montana had a very good Pluto broadcast. We mentioned that a little bit, but I was a fan of the way they produced the game, and I didn't feel like I was watching Pluto TV and watching something from 1993.
Yeah, it was very, very clean, I thought.
There's a mountain joke in there somewhere, Chappie.
No, 100%. It was almost HD. Like, it was almost HD. And if it would have been HD, I would have just been, hey, we could do this forever. But whatever they're doing up there in Montana should be the gold standard for what the league is. The other schools in the league are doing for broadcasts.
Yeah, well, before we wrap this one up, guys, I want to shout out to our sponsor, Wildcat Rack. If you're in the market for some officially licensed Wildcat gear, Sean Lewis walking some of it right now. We got the Mountain W long sleeve right there. Check out wildcatrack.com. It's a great place where you can support a local business who's trying to get more and unique designs into the market here in Weber County and beyond. So go check out the website, wildcatrack.com. You can also follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Good place to learn more about what they're doing. There are sneak peeks there and some good designs in the pipeline. So thanks to Wildcat Rack for sponsoring Weber State Weekly. Now, guys, with that, I was going to just say, if you're any parting thoughts before we wrap this one up, we're going to be looking forward to playing against, I think it's Northern Colorado next week, right? I was going to say the schedule softens up a bit for the Wildcats going forward from this point. We've played most of the tough teams in the conference now, and nothing against Northern Colorados or the Northern Arizonas of the conference. They are still decent teams, but they're not necessarily the Eastern Washingtons, the Montana States, or the SUUs of the conference. So, looks like we're going to be facing those. We're facing Northern Arizona in the D next week. Those games will be Thursday and Saturday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If things continue, looks like there will also be tickets available. But parting thoughts on all of that, guys, before we wrap this one up.
As we wrap up, we're getting to the end of the conference season. No more laying eggs. This is the time we've got to start peaking for our 3 days in Boise. We've got to get the ship right. So we got to begin to have that focus and don't lay an egg against the bottom dwellers of the conference.
Chappie, what about you? Parting thoughts?
Yeah, the lessons have been learned. That second half was a great second half. They didn't lay the egg. The backs were against the wall. It was a close game. They came out. It made a difference. But huge takeaway from me, parting shot. I just love the balance of this team. I don't remember a Weber State team that was quite this balanced.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with that, fellas, we're going to wrap this one up. I want to remind the folks, if you're following us on Instagram or on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are good places to do that. Twitter is one of the best places to chat with the Weber State Weekly team on game day, especially. And if you're interested in learning about what we got going on, we've been producing a lot of good content on the blog. So go to WeberStateWeekly.com to read up on some of that. So we'll wrap it up like we always do, fellas, and I'll go Weber State, Weber State.
Great.
Great.
Great. Go Wild.